Hey there everyone, it's New here. I think it's long past time. I brought you part 3 of the Soulthirst Tornado Shot build showcase video. This is featuring high budget this time. Yes, high budget would be next in line. If you can recall, low budget came out the very first week of the league. It was about 3 to 4x budget. Then a medium budget came out shortly thereafter. About 5 times that budget in currency. This time, it's hard to point. It gets progressively more challenging to pinpoint exactly what the budget is for this. I know different people have different impressions of what a low, medium versus high budget constitutes. I'm going to say it's somewhere in the range of probably 100 to 200 exalt. Certainly still below a mirror tier character, although the character that I have featured here in the POB listed down below is certainly pushing a mirror in gear in total. Especially if you include all of the jewels, all of the gems, everything included. Probably is actually a mirror more on this character at the present time. So, as I go through everything and show you all the gear and whatnot, I'll certainly go into some detail about some things you can do to maybe settle for something a little bit less than what you see on my character. But it's nice I can show you kind of, you know, the goal or the top end of what you might want for any given gear slot, because this character is looking pretty good as far as the gear, performing extremely well, and I want to show you guys how it's been going. So just like the last couple videos, we'll go through major changes first, from the medium budget into the high-end budget. We'll feature the passive skill tree, the gear, the gems, the flasks, all of that. The Atlas tree that I'm kind of working with. There actually is a huge change to the Atlas tree that I've been doing. I've kind of been tinkering around with a much more low investment, higher difficulty Atlas tree, which kind of doesn't make sense on its face, but stay tuned for that. And you can always skip to that part if you want. I will, of course, showcase a map on that specific Atlas that is at least almost exactly like what I've been doing. And then, you know, just kind of close the video out from there. All right, so major changes should be obvious to anyone. We are going to add an Omniscience into the build. Omniscience right there. Odd enchant, I know. Well, I'll talk about that enchant in a little bit. No Headhunter. Obviously, if it's a Soulthirst build, it cannot have a Headhunter, but I do need to kind of address this, as it is a kind of elephant in the room right now. Headhunter was buffed somewhat recently, and I have not had a chance to try it still. I will certainly do that well before the league is over. I am anticipating that Headhunter probably is better than Soulthirst now, excluding the cost difference, obviously, for most situations, for most strategies. However, the strategy I am showcasing here, at least as I describe it, I think will be a little bit better with Soulthirst than Headhunter, and we'll get into that, why that is. But let's just jump right in. I don't think there's any major changes here except one change here, and that is the addition of a Brutal Restraint. Now, I did not have a Brutal Restraint in the medium budget because they're just a lot harder to come by this league than before. And to be completely honest with you guys, I do not recommend you put a Brutal Restraint even at the high budget unless you can have an exceptionally good seed or Lethal Pride. Now, what does that mean? Well, you kind of have to find out for yourself. I can go ahead and give you a hint. The one I have in here that is absolutely worthy is 2311. So this is the seed of Brutal Restraint. Any Brutal Restraint with the seed, it doesn't matter what the rest of the text says. This is going to be a fantastic seed. I can show you right here what that constitutes. We're getting right into the passive tree here. This is a 4% max life roll, 5% dexterity. 5% dexterity, again, if I had 3 more passive points, which I don't have to spare right now. The top end has Alchemist Genius, which is not actually good for Soulthirst, but it's terrific for a Headhunter build, and I will probably take this if and when I switch to Headhunter. Down here we got Frenzy Charge on Kill. That one matters a lot because it saves a lot of passive points. We have a 20 Dexterity. I usually do take Acuity, and I certainly will with a Headhunter build again, but just 20 Dex is actually one of the worst passives I have in here. We got Curse, which is the main reason you would take a Brutal Restraint over Lethal Pride is if you want to increase effective non-curse auras, and auras are a big part of this build, primarily for the defensive bonus they give. 5% movement speed. I mean, movement speed is essentially the best stat in the game. That's another reason why you might want Brutal Restraint. We got another 8% increased aura, and then we got the absolute dog crap worst one here, 20% increased evasion. So if 20% increased evasion is the absolute worst mod you have on here out of a choice of like 8 or 9 mods, that's a really, really good timeless jewel. And again, this is C2311. 745 is also pretty good. And I'm forgetting the other one, but there was like one more that's pretty good. Anyway, you can live search these up, and if you want to do it this way, that's fine. Now, the main reason I don't recommend this is not just because of how challenging it is to get a good seed, but because there are some major passives restrictions that go into this if you're doing that. For example, another huge change I did is I included another medium cluster jewel. I actually have a perfect, this is a 100% perfect cluster jewel for this build, in my opinion. Having the tier 1 max life, tier 1 stat, and tier 1 chaos res with tier 1 increased effect. This thing cost me... Oh yeah, I bought this without the chaos roll and actually paid for the augment chaos to get it, and fortunately hit tier 1. I was just hoping for tier 2 or better. It was dozens of exalts. So the jewels here, the jewels that I have, yeah, I mean, between these 3 medium cluster, this is at least 100x between just these 3 cluster jewels, probably at least 50x for the absolute perfect one. But you don't have to settle for that. You can go for something a little less. If all of the tiers of these rolls were dropped by 1, it would be worth only like 5-10 exalts probably. If well, not counting the 35, I would, for a high budget, I would only accept 35% for the increased effect roll. You could Alkin Scour within 5x, you're going to hit something really good. If you did 5 exalts worth of Alkin Scouring on this jewel, you are absolutely going to hit something worth at least 5x. It doesn't have to have max life. It could have distilled. The passive for that, for the increased flask duration. You do not absolutely have to have chaos res, but I would recommend chaos res on at least 2 of these because of how the rest of the gear holds. Let's see if we see my chaos res right now. You can see it's just barely over cap, which is, I mean, that's pretty awesome to actually have capped chaos res, and primarily coming from, almost exclusively, I think, coming from the medium cluster. In fact, it may be. No, it's not exclusive coming because I still have this ring over here. So just this ring and just the jewels actually caps my chaos rate, which is pretty awesome there. So we got the medium cluster. It has switched out. I did switch out to a tier 1 roll here, but I do have Feed Fury now because I dropped the leech off of Taste of Blood, and because I switched some of the gear around. So I will show the gear shortly in a minute, but there are a few minor changes here. Most of it's still the same, though, honestly. Most of it's still the same. Still running Mantra of Flames. I did squeeze in a Forbidden Flesh, and in my opinion, you know, the loss of the Lionized Glare bow with the far shot, which I talked about that in the last video, the medium budget video. I estimated it was something like 20% more DPS. I like that one to go. There's a lot of different option ones. You could take one of the better ones from the Raider Ascendancy if you wanted to. You could take Focal Point right here if you wanted to. It wouldn't be a bad choice. I did elect to take Far Shot, and actually the most budgety way you can do this is if you set up your passives here with Far Shot or Organic. In fact, I think it's better because you can get projectile speed that way instead of the rest of this stuff. But if you take Windward as the Forbidden Flesh jewel, Windward is worth less than 1x because nobody wants it, and I'm pretty much the only person who is, you know, thumping for Windward, and I talked about that a lot in the previous video. I absolutely have no regrets doing it. When we're attacking like 1,000 times a second, Windward is up almost virtually 100% of the time. You can get caught with your pants down a little bit if you're trying to run through the map without attacking or casting anything. But, you know, if you're playing the character right, then you're gonna have an enormous amount of recovery and enormous amount of effective EHP via windward there. So yeah, so that's basically it on the major changes. Of course, this means in order to keep the inspired learning, which I think inspired learning is more important than a timeless jewel. So I had to do this. I had to go all the way up here and get these 4. These are decent, but I don't think this is a lot of great value in passive points. It's okay. I mean, I'm not really getting anything. The power charges and stuff. Getting the extra max frenzy is nice. Getting the life is okay. It's okay. It could certainly be a lot worse. And of course, I do get a little bit out of these small ones, 10 decks, because I'm running Omniscience now. It's just, it costs 13 passive points, and not counting the masteries. It costs 13 passive points to get points up here, and that is a lot. I mean, that basically means I had to pull points out of this life node here. I had to, like, for a second, I wasn't even running Druidic Rite because I didn't have the passive points. I'm level 99 now, so this is a level 99 tree, and I barely have the passive point. I would like to have Heartseeker for the 5% dex tier, and the crit multi would be nice. I can't do it. I don't have the passive points to spare. For a while there, before all of this, I didn't have the 3rd medium cluster in here, but my flasks now last 61 seconds in total, which is really nice. So I do, you know, if you can get the 3rd medium cluster jewel in there, absolutely you should. And also, if you don't run a Brutal Restraint, you can you could probably get your Heartseeker in, you could get all these life jewels in here, you could run a large cluster and 2 medium clusters, and by putting your Inspired Learning in here. So there is an enormous price to pay for doing the Brutal Restraint. But let's look at this. I mean, look at how much incredible value this Brutal Restraint is. Just watch this. I have 988 Omniscience. I take this off, I have 878. So I get over 100 Omniscience out of this, which is pretty daggone big. I could have even more if I took some of these here. So it's still a work in progress. I think the Brutal Restraint is worth getting if it's this good. 16% increased effect of non-cursors is so much defense, and some offense too, obviously, for the Hatredor. Okay, so yeah, all this stuff over here looks exactly the same, I think. For a hot second there, I was running Graceful Assault. Like, also, you know, if you have no Brutal Restraint, you have points, you could actually run Graceful Assault. It's really good. If you don't run Graceful Assault, it was brought to my attention somewhat recently that you have to have Onslaught on kill at some point, because Onslaught just from Darussel's Defiance, it surprised me. It's not up very much, because you don't get hit very often. You don't get hit nearly often enough to have anywhere near 100% Onslaught uptime. And you're running Darussel's Defiance, you're getting 100% increased Onslaught effect, doubled Onslaught effect. You want to have Onslaught active. So let's get into the gear here. I'm going to shift straight over talking about Onslaught, I guess is a pretty good idea. I still like the idea of running Darussel's Defiance with Worm Sign in conjunction with Immortal Call. I think this is just a terrific synergy. If you can run it this way, it totally takes care of the issue of endurance charges. You get way more Onslaught power from Onslaught. This way you get a huge amount of armor and evasion, flat armor and evasion this way. And again, the only issue here is that this alone isn't really good enough for Onslaught. So how do you work around that? Well, you can use boots like this. So these boots, again, probably a bit over budget even for high tier. These boots actually surprisingly only cost me 2 exalts without the movement speed mod, and then I got very lucky and Islinged without losing the max life, and in fact I Islinged off a sort of mediocre roll and was therefore able to cast do Cannot Be Frozen, which meant I could move out of Soul of the Brine King and take Soul of Solaris. A Soul of the Brine King is fine. You're not getting huge value out of Soul of Solaris, so you don't need Cannot Be Frozen on your boots. You absolutely don't need that. You can just run Brine King Pantheon. But you do need, I think, either you need Onslaught somewhere, so you could get it on Brutal Restraint, ironically, potentially. I think that 745 might be the seed with Brutal Restraint for Onslaught, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on that. But you're probably going to get it on your boots. And it's either going to come from the synth mod, which that might actually be the best thing, because having 100% increased onslaught effect up 100% of the time like a raider is just going to be huge for your overall efficiency. You know, imagine if I was moving 40% increased movement speed in the hideout. That would be stupendous if I could have that, but I do not have that. Eventually I'll switch over to raider, and by the way, Raider Ascendancy will be in the making for the sort of mirror tier Soulthirst build. If I do that, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to do mirror tier Soulthirst. I'm going to have to check out the power of Headhunter first. I mean, Headhunter just might blow it out of the water. We'll see. Obviously, if you have a mirror tier budget, then you can afford Headhunter easily. But even on high tier, 100 to 200x, Headhunter is still such a huge portion of that budget that it cuts into so much else that you could be having with Soulthirst. So I still think Soulthirst has a place for the higher budget, especially with the farm I'm going to show you later on. So in this case, I actually have the Aisling chosen mod for the Onslaught on kill. This has worked out really nice. You can see pretty clearly how much better these boots are than at Series Step. I mean, there's no question. Even if I had like a perfect double corruption on Series Step, they wouldn't beat this. Not with 6% action speed. The physical gained is extra cold is good too. The tier 1 life. I mean, the regenerate life. This is the only source of regeneration life I have, so really nice for me here. And of course, the tier 1 spell suppression and even tier 1 stat roll. So I would budget maybe 5 to 10x for boots. If these boots were, I don't know, missing. If they were missing the tier 1 life roll and I had to benchcraft life on it, that'd be probably about 10x if I 5 or 10x. And then if I completely lost the stat roll on here, they'd probably be worth only 5 to 10x. At least before you roll the implicits. And the implicits are easy to get on this, actually. There's plenty of guides out there how to do that. I do have a new Soulthirst. I did happen to get a double corruption on the rarity roll here. So, I mean, that's cool. It's not affecting anything major. Here's something that's very interesting about the gloves. Now check out this double implicit. So I think you're going to want to switch over to max frenzy for the gloves, and you're going to typically anoint your amulet with utmost strength or utmost intellect for a lot more omniscience. That is significantly more omniscience you get from that. However, if you can get this double corruption, which is not easy to find gloves with this double corruption, you will find that you net gain at least 10 elemental penetration by going for these gloves and anointing Whispers of Doom. Now that's a triple gold anoint. It's expensive, but the high tier budget, it's not that expensive really. It's like 1x or something, maybe 2x at the most. And then let's see, the quiver is exactly the same as it was before. This was still kind of medium to high budget quiver, so just keeping that as it is. Eventually I'll have a mirror tier quiver, but I'm definitely just going to run this thing all the way through. God, this was such an amazing buy when I bought this for 2x on like the 3rd day of the season. God, it was so good. I can't believe how lucky I got with that. This ring is a brand new one. Now, I talked about this ring in a couple of videos previously, but this is a really interesting item to craft. Now, the rings are pretty flexible, I think. I still have this ring over here, which is about the same as the one I was running before. I did eventually get a slightly better one. I was actually crafting this ring for profit right here, and then Redeemer slamming for whatever I got, and I would just sell the ones that didn't hit projectile speed. Eventually, I finally hit projectile damage, and so I decided to go ahead and keep that. But the rings are flex slot. You know, I don't have to have chaos res on these rings. I would have well over, you know, positive chaos res just with the cluster jewels alone. You don't have to have this ring. I was running a pariah here, but I was trying to solo level up to 100 ever so slowly. It's been challenging this league. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to get like the absolute best max life ring I could possibly get via recombinators. At the same time, it can also cheese life on hit, which means I can drop this is another reason I wanted to do it, because it enabled me to drop Taste for Blood and or a Watcher's Eye. I do have a new Watcher's Eye, actually. I did switch over to damage cold conversion. I forgot. Yeah, I did drop Winter's Spirit in favor of this. I do think the increased movement speed is kind of a mandatory role on Watcher's Eye for quality of life, and then this Watcher's Eye is like 2x. This is a really cheap one. To get a good third mod, you would have to pay a lot, but I can't find one that's reasonable at this time. Anyway, back to this. So 24 life on hit, super awesome. 93 max life, 8% max life. I mean, it's just so huge. 10% maximum life in total. It's a temple mod combined with Elrond's. This is actually unnecessary. Even without Flasks, I have only 2 mana cost. With Flasks on, the highest mana cost thing I have is Immortal Call at 4 mana, which would allow me to shrink my mana pool down. So there's a lot of room for adjustments, honestly. Like, I almost think, hold on a second here. Yeah, even if I literally remove the ring, my Tornado Shot only costs 2 mana. Now, I do recommend getting your Tornado Shot down to 0 mana because it allows you to run literally any modifier on a map. You no longer have to worry about physical reflect, elemental reflect ever in any way, shape, or form if you do that. Again, with the 25% reduction in mana costs on the Flask, you want a 0 cost Tornado Shot. So that's the benchmark to hit. Everything else doesn't really matter. So long as you have at least enough mana that you can use your Immortal Call. Even here, it's only 16. Yeah, so I'm actually doing kind of overkill on this. The fact that I went 60% reduced effective shock. Oh yeah, it means with Soul of Gurkhan, you're 100% immune to shock. With Brine King, you're 100% immune to freeze. So that is a really nice addition as well. I am running immunity to Burning Ground though because I'm doing Searing Arc, Exarch influence there. The bow, well, here the bow is a big story, of course. I recently crafted a couple of bows, made an entire crafting video over. It was over an hour long, I think, and I am using the better of the 2 bows that I had. This is just picture perfect high budget bow. It's not out of this world. It's not mirror tier, but it's absolutely I can't think of a better jump from Lionized Glare to this, and then from this to Path of Math's mirrored bow. I mean, that would just be perfect. It's just right in between those two. I crafted this for approximately 25 exalts, and it cost this bow I could probably sell for like 100 exalts if I wanted to. It is a 712 DPS physical bow with +2 arrows. I think that's what it came out to. Yeah, so that kind of covers all the gear. Again, I'm never going to replace this Gull Helm. I think I mentioned this in the last video. This is over budget Gull Helm. This cost me like 13x for the enchant with the double corruption. You don't have to have the +2 level of socketed aura gems. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have only the 90% cost and reservation multiplier on the helmet. That's perfectly fine. I probably could have double corrupted a Darasil's Defiance at this point, but I just haven't got around to it. And yeah, with this implicit, I'm going to mess with the quiver. So that's basically it as far as the gear. The Flasks, I don't think the Flasks have really changed. I might have made them a little bit higher on the Enkindling Orb enchant. I'm trying to remember. Oh, no, I'm mistaken. Sorry, it was quite a while ago since I made that medium budget video. I did switch out the Flasks because of getting Omniscience. Now you can see that the elemental resists are, well, they're practically capped, right? And then if I use this, they're well over capped, which means I no longer need any elemental flasks here. And I am using Taste of Hate because of the incredible amount of damage increase and EHP it gives as well. So that's really nice. But one thing I really want to have is phasing. I can't get phasing anywhere else comfortably, so the perfect place to put it is on one of your flasks. So you can get phasing there, and I recommend a Jade flask because evasion is kind of more important with the Darasil's Defiance mechanic, how that works with endurance charges. So Quartz flask is here with you do need one for reduced curse effect, and this is basically a perfect Jade flask on the other side. And then Quicksilver flask is still there. Bismuth flask is still there. This is actually a perfect Bismuth flask, 100% perfect. So you can probably get yourself a 100% perfect Experimenter's Bismuth flask of the order I'd say that would probably be a pretty good investment. You could probably get all of your flasks up to 28% quality as well, and at least 95% increased duration flask. You're looking at somewhere around a 10x budget on all the flasks with that, I would suspect. Yeah, so again, my gear here, definitely a little over budget. You can cut some corners with the rings, absolutely. You can not have a double corrupted gull. You can cut some corners on the boots. If I just dropped one of the modifiers on these boots, they would be much less valuable. The quiver is not, yeah. So I think we're looking at around 150 exalts, maybe. Kind of budget range, what I'm talking about. If you settle for some pieces that are a little bit lower than what I have here, that's probably about right. Yeah, let's talk about the gem links. I think gem links would be next on the agenda. So, everything the same on the bow. Still using physical bow, physical gem links, vicious projectile support. I do recommend at this point that you get all of your alternate quality and awakened gems going on at the medium budget level. I did not. So you definitely are going to be spending some upwards of probably 50 exalts on gems, especially if you get something like Anomalous Precision. That one's very expensive. Mine's only level 19 right now, but it does actually give me okay, so only 99%. You can pretty well see once I get this Anomalous Precision up to 20, I will have 100% chance to hit. So slight error on my part on that. I have been adjusting things and realized I need that 100% hit, so I need the level 20 precision on there. Other gems, yeah, I think everything's basically the same. I did have to pull Defiance Banner out because I'm not running a Pariah, so it came down here. I think I lost an enhanced gem for that. Position down there, these are still the same. I should probably get, I think it's Anomalous Determination. I should probably get that by now. Kind of forgot about that gem, but I'll look into that shortly after. I'm still running the Ballista Totem, Focus Ballista support here. The only other good alternative, I think, is an Animate Guardian. Now, I haven't got around to that yet. Honestly, I'm a bit scared of just how rippy this league is, especially with the way Sentinel works. I have a feeling my Animate Guardian is just going to die right and left, and well, that's a little bit proven by how cheap the Animate Guardian, ironically, the pieces for it seem to be a little cheaper than usual this league. I guess it's because people aren't even really trying to run it in their builds like they usually are. So at some point in the mirror tier budget, I certainly will attempt to get Animate Guardian to work in a 6 link in my chest, but for now, it is not. Still running Sniper's Mark, all the anomalous and divergent gems. That's the picture there. The POB is, of course, linked down below. The flasks have been taken care of. I actually got that out of the way ahead of time, I guess. Let's go over to Atlas Tree. So the Atlas Tree is going to look really interesting here. This will also be linked in the description below. You can snapshot it right now if you want. I saw Palsteron, I think is his name. I'm not sure if he's the originator of the strategy. Grimro is kind of the originator of the sort of just Sentinel only. Al can go Sentinel focus, super fast in and out. Palsteron promoted a strategy on Glacier where you just very quickly went in and out. I tried that. Kind of liked it, and I think that type of strategy is actually excellent choice for Soulthirst, because a 1 minute flask duration, you're only in the map for 1 minute, basically. You're looting everything. So you can use 2 Pandemonium Sentinel effects and 1 Stalker Sentinel in 1 minute flat pretty easily, especially on a map like Glacier. So this is the kind of strategy set up to look for that. Now, if you compare my tree to his, it's a little different. I'm not taking the Rogue Exiles on that. I like the idea of just having a ghost in there involved, and this makes it quite hard, obviously. I think in this case, Searing Exarch is probably a little bit better choice than Eater of Worlds, especially since I cannot take Shadow of Hunter. Why? Well, because I'm taking Wandering Path. This is actually, a Wandering Path strategy. Fortunately, Wandering Path does not terribly impact the shrine nodes. In fact, actually, it might even make shrines a little bit more powerful. You have 1 fewer shrine, obviously, but Shrine effects do actually last a little bit longer with the Wandering Path because the double effect of the small nodes. There's some really good stuff in here when you double things up to get a lot of extra maps you can sell. Obviously for the quantity wheel and the increased effect modifiers side here, this makes the maps way harder, especially if you run like 8 modded corrupted maps. They can be impossible to run for a lot of different builds, but again, the map I'm about to showcase you is going to be with this tree, and I'm just going to show you how incredibly good the build is, even on sort of maximum level difficulty, aside from Wrath of the Cosmos. It's like the only thing I'm not taking. That would be absolutely ridiculous. I could be taking Dance of Destruction too, actually, now that I think about it, but decided not to take those points down there. But obviously going to make the map hard. Going to have ghosts. Going to have insane amount of increased effective modifiers on the maps. I'm going to be running Legion in this case. Legion small nodes with the Wandering Path's actually surprisingly good too. You still get 0.8% chance of a raw emblem drop from these two here. I think I am going to try to make a real strategy doing Legion with Wandering Path. I really like the Wandering Path, quick in and out, sentinel only focus strategy for Soulthirst, because it just lasts the right amount of time. At least 2 uses of it in the map, plenty to kill everything you need to kill. Abyss, some Abyss stuff here, just because it's just so much extra monsters in case Abyss spawns. But there's a wide variety of different things you can do with an Atlas like this. You can run it with 0 investment and just hope things spawn and just focus on Sentinels. In the case of showcasing of the map, I am going to actually throw Legion Sexton and Legion Scarab in to kind of prove just how strong this strategy is with this. The gear I have at the high-end budget and the Soulthirst and all that. A little extra Delirium chant here. And I don't need to take all of the map doubling nodes, because especially if you do Legion, or if you do on a map I'm actually running on dunes. Get a little bit more full clear exposure. You get plenty of maps. You're actually 100% self-sustain if you're running Legion on purpose. So yeah, I think that kind of does it for the mapping Atlas, and this is not, this is not for the faint of heart here. What I'm about to show you is not for the faint of heart. You gotta have a really strong character. So let's take a look at this map here. I got a really nice Beyond map, 8 mod corrupted. Obviously it's gonna be a pretty strong map. I'm gonna throw a Gilded Legion Scarab in here because I'm gonna kill the bosses, just to show you how easy the bosses can be. We do have an extra Legion on here, so this is very minimal investment. I mean, it's like a 5 Chaos Scarab, an 8 Chaos Sextant maybe for 2 per map. I mean, this is a total investment cost of like less than 10 Chaos, counting the cost of the map itself. I am actually not going to run Shrines, again, just to prove how strong the build is on its own without Shrines, and running this sort of strategy. So in this showcase, I'm sort of showcasing a strategy, not just the build itself. So here, let's go and take a look. This is Dunes. It's very quick and easy. Okay, so I go in here and I guess Metamorph spawn. I'm not going to run the actual Metamorph, so I have to do that. I go ahead and kill. I get a bunch of Soulthirst stacks and spawn the Influence. I'm going to beeline for a Legion. Got my Pandemonium Sentinel. You saw the timing was basically perfect there. Make sure I get the bosses out. Yeah, I guarantee you that spawned the boss there. Might as well open the second one, second Pandemonium Sentinel. It's so great to run the Pandemonium Sentinels on the Legion, because you're guaranteed to hit a pretty high number of monsters, but then the empowerment is much more likely to land strong, because there's a lot of rares and magic monsters. It's more likely to give you bonus extra reward. So I don't know. I unlocked. There's a boss that just died right over there. I don't even know where the bosses are because they're dead. Oh, there's a boss that just died right there. I only have 200 stacks, by the way. This is not some crazy high stack number. Okay, that boss is dead. All the bosses are dead, I think. Okay, I'm running my second round of... Yeah, it's kind of sad not having corrupted. Here we go. This is a Beyond boss that's kind of killing me because I ran my second round of Flasks, less than 100 stacks. I do have a Stalker Sentinel out. Here's a boss. I think he's in fact ghosted. I think that boss was actually ghosted with the Stalker Sentinel empowerment on top of it. He still got obliterated. And yeah, we'll just kind of move through and do the rest of the map. Now I could just run through and picking up stuff and finish the map if I wanted to very easily, but I think in this case I will go ahead and start a little bit of Stalker Sentinel. People are complaining a lot about the Stalker Sentinel not casting fast enough being a problem. One way to work around that is that instead of doing Glacier, for example, just actually run Dunes or something. Just put way more monsters on the map, and it gives that Sentinel ample time to do its thing. In some cases, I do run around and I actually have to deliberately give my Stalker Sentinel a little bit of extra time to activate. Now I'm basically at the looting phase. I am at my weakest point now. If I'm going to die on this map, it's going to be right now. You know, if a Beyond boss just came out of nowhere and started casting stuff at me, I would potentially die. I could use Flasks again, but my Bismuth Flask is under. One thing I could be doing right now is porting back to town and then coming back in, get fresh Flasks up if I wanted to, although I do have a couple of Shrine effects on too, so I don't know. I can still kill things, you know, with the gear I have right now, even with 0 Soulthirst up. I can still kill some trash monsters, get enough Flasks charges back up. Like air, we'll go see. We'll go do that actually right now. So there's a ghost that came through, and now I can start casting my Flasks again. So unfortunately, that ghost never got a chance to do anything. But yeah, that is the map. That's a map showcase. That's it. So that was here. Let's actually go in here and look and see what this looks like. Monsters deal 168% increase to cold, and got 20% beyond off of that 13% roll from all the increased effect modifiers. 80% reduced flask charges gained. 200% quantity, like easy mode, getting 200% quantity on that map. That's pretty wild. And I don't think I picked up any quantity alters either. Yeah, actually, yeah. There you go. So it's pretty cool, actually. The Wandering Path. At first glance, looking at the Wandering Path here, I was kind of turned off by it. In fact, I was more keen on potentially grand design, because I'm thinking to myself, how in the world can I not pick up the notables? I mean, just Flash. If I can't get Flash Breach is dead in my mind. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of true actually. But take a look at Legion, for example. Look at Legion. It's actually pretty dang good, even with just the small nodes. One thing that makes it actually better, in a sense, is these Templar Legion and Maricat Legioning chances are doubled. So I'm actually going to see even more Templar or Maricat Legions with the Wandering Path than I would with any other strategy. So that's pretty cool. Now, if these two nodes didn't exist, I don't think Wandering Path would be good for Legion, but because they do, I go from a grand total of 1% down to 0.8% chance for a Legion Splinter to drop as a full Legion. Also, getting these doubled up too is a big deal. That's kind of a big deal as well. Yeah, it's really nice. So I just kind of want to leave that to you guys there. You can take a look at that strategy. I am actually immediately going to come out with a video featuring this strategy in a 100 map session. I'm going to do actually back-to-back 100 map sessions, a couple different things with this Wandering Path strategy. I think it is something interesting to try for this this league in particular. The idea of just running in a map, getting out real quick. I killed the boss in this showcase. Normally I don't even kill the boss because it's just not that important, because you're triggering the influence anyway, and you need to kill the boss the very last time on the 20, kill 28 or whatever. Yeah,
I'm not up to that just yet.
You can see the Sentinels here. They're pretty high currency rewards. This one has a Sentinel reward. So I don't think you saw any like spectacular rewards or drops from there, from that map. But the drops, you're just running through so many different maps at a time. It's good. So closing thoughts, final thoughts on this. I don't really have a whole lot to say other than I think once you push from medium to high budget territory, you really want to start thinking about probably going Headhunter instead. Headhunter is kind of going to be the theme of the conclusion here, because a lot of quality of life getting Headhunter. I'm hearing people sustaining 40, 50 buffs. Again, for a normal map, full clear map juicing strategy, like if I was doing Crimson Temple with the Strongbox strategy, whatever, I'm 95% sure Headhunter is going to absolutely be better than Soulthirst. Apparently, Headhunter gives you Soulthirst already, although it would force reset the stacks every time you got a new Soulthirst buff, I'm guessing, so you would have way less control over it. But, I mean, just the fact that you would essentially have Soulthirst up 100% of the time, even just a few stacks of it, that's kind of making Soulthirst much, as a belt, much less appealing. If I have Headhunter, I don't need Inspired Learning. I'd save all the points this way. So I would obviously be running different medium cluster jewels entirely, like Repeater and Streamlined or something like that. Anyway, it would give me way more flexibility on my passive skill tree. I'd probably have more life because I would be able to take some of these down here. Or I might do what I did last season and do double large cluster and do like a super juicy 12 passive cluster, large cluster jewel. I think it would also give me at least one extra jewel, because I would do double large clusters as well. I could maybe get an extra jewel this way with just, what, 4 points? Go this way. I could get this down here with Graceful Assault. So I am looking forward to trying Headhunter, and the main reason is because of the flexibility it's going to provide on the passive tree. The most annoying thing about the high budget setup I have here is just how tight this passive skill tree is. You're getting a lot of value out of every single point. Every single point in here is super important. Like I said, at one point I had to sacrifice Druidic Rite to make this work. At one point I didn't have the third medium cluster. At one point I didn't have the Brutal Restraint, and I didn't have to do all this. But once I had to go up here for the Inspired Learning, I had to shuffle things around so hard that I had to level up. You know, I had to get up to level 99. I feel like level 100 is going to give me something meaningful. I'm going to get literally an extra mastery out of it, a valuable mastery. I think I've had to sacrifice some masteries as well on this. So I've been having a ton of fun still. Loving the Soulthirst. I do dig this new sort of farming strategy with the Sentinel. I call it Sentinel and Go, I guess. I think I can kind of build on that, make it even better in a way, doing Legion, sort of like Legion in the Dunes or something. Yeah, maybe not even on the cemetery because of the nature of the strategy. I'm going to see how much currency per hour this strat comes out. So look forward to a few new currency strategies featuring this sort of very quick in and out of the map, abusing Soulthirst to its maximum potential. Quick in and out of the map, use all the Sentinels, maybe do a Legion or two, and we're going to see how much that makes, because I'm pretty sure it's going to make at least 10x an hour. Pretty sure. Stay tuned for more videos. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Again, very last thing to say, it's really hard to pinpoint a budget on this. I'm just going to say kind of 100 to 200x. The gear and everything I have on my character currently is probably about 300x, as a matter of fact, counting everything in total. Possibly even more. But I think you can kind of use what you see with my gear. Rings, very flexible. Boots, fairly flexible. You can kind of look at how you can maybe cut some corners there. You're gonna have to use your own brain on this a little bit to see what you might be able to do. But if you want to keep pushing that build forward, I don't know how many of you are still using this build, but if there's a lot of you doing it, a lot of you still thinking about pushing it all the way into, you know, serious endgame territory, go for it. I think it's great. I still absolutely adore this build. It's been a great build. I do think its benefit at the low budget is more impactful, especially with how many people challenge. Man, I'm still hearing people talk about how horrible this league is and how impossible it is to run a non-meta build, especially at a low budget and with the arch nemesis. I mean, I already showcased it, blasting that mindset out of the water on day 6 or whatever when I came out with a low budget video. But absolutely, you take this budget, put it in a high budget, of course it's going to do phenomenally well. It was working pretty well at a low budget. It was working just fine at a medium budget. It's just going to be outstanding at a high budget, and I don't see any reason why you shouldn't do this at a high budget other than Headhunter being buffed immensely. Man, if Headhunter hadn't been buffed this season, this build would have just been bonkers good for the season. But with Headhunter buffed, yeah, it happened. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you for now.